There are 5 core concepts with how Unity works. They are scenes, game objects, components, assets, and properties. A scene is a list of game objects. A game object is a list of components. Components are just lists of properties, and properties sometimes reference assets. Assets are just files. That's the basic version. Let's go through each one in detail. Scenes are just files. We can open them up in a text editor, and they're sort of human readable. We can search through them and find the information we need, but they are just a list of game objects. Your project might contain lots and lots of scenes. Let's say we're making a platforming game, Mario running through all the different worlds. In general, each of the different levels would be one scene, but also things like the main menu or the settings menu, those each might get their own scene. A scene is just everything that's loaded at one point in time in general. A game object, that's a thing that exists inside of a scene. That's a thing. Game object is sort of Unity's word for thing. Game objects are players, game objects are managers and organizers, game objects are the enemies, the spikes, the levels, the blocks. All of these things are game objects. What separates one game object from another, the camera from the player, for example, is the components. A component is a behavior. Make a thing, do a thing. That's a component. Each component gives every game object its unique behavior. Take a look at the main camera game object, and that's what makes the main camera a camera. It's the camera component and the audio listener component, which they should call the ears component, but that's just me. The cube that we can make in our scene, it contains a mesh renderer component. That's what makes it visible in the scene, while the box collider is what makes it solid according to physics. So components are what make a thing do a thing. Each component gives a game object one behavior, and your game objects can have more than one component. Outside of components, we have assets. Those are down there in the project window, and assets are just files. They're just files. That's all they are. They're on our computer. Some assets can have sub-assets. You can import a 3D model, and it can have multiple meshes, and it can have materials that get imported with that one file on the hard drive. Could be multiple assets. But in general, one file makes one asset, like how this material.mat file makes our material asset inside of Unity. Lastly, we have properties. Properties are the things that we are editing in the inspector. Going down the list, we can see whenever we have a vector3 property, we have this XYZ fields next to each other. Whenever you have a color property, you get a color picker. And these properties, most of the time, they're just numbers. Numbers, sometimes strings or letters, but most of the time, colors, RGBA, they're just numbers. So properties are just values. They get saved in the scene file for all of our game objects. Assets get referenced by properties. So there's 2 types of properties. Data properties that are just numbers, and reference properties where our property is pointing to either something else in the scene, like a component or a game object, or it's pointing to an asset. Take a look at how this mesh renderer is pointing to a material asset, and how the mesh filter is pointing to the mesh asset. And you can see that both of these selectors have the same visual appearance in the property window. It has that little circle with a dot inside of its selector, that I call it the bullseye selector, that you can click on to bring up a quick picker. Seeing that icon, seeing that shape tells us that this is a reference property. It's pointing to something else. While when we just have an editor or a selector, that tells us it's a data property, just some value that we edit directly. Scenes, game objects, components, properties, and assets make up what a Unity project is. And understanding them is core to understanding Unity. I think that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're playing Pokemon on your phone, so like you weren't listening, but...